From Toronto, this is JWeekly Canada, starring Ieden and Susan Minuk. Tonight, musician Allan Soberman and artist Lena Shugar. From Studio 18, here is Ieden.
Allan Soberman, musician extraordinaire.
Hello.
I think the start of this story, so the viewers understand, is your father. Would you agree? I think without the knowledge of your father, this story would be incomplete. Is that true?
Correct. That is the story. It swirls around him.
So who was your father?
He was a bar mitzvah teacher and a Torah reader.
Wow.
And for several decades, and I was in a shadow, his shadow. What he would have wanted me to portray myself as, I could never do it, and so I went my own way, which was never not my family's favorite way for me to go.
What did he want you to do?
I could have been reading more Torah portions. I could have been doing this. I could have been doing that, and it was always to me. It was always competing with him, and it was too nerve-wracking to go into that shul and try to be the cantor's son.
Your father is this renowned Torah reader, Torah teacher, bar mitzvah teacher, cantor. Everybody loves him. Beth Tzedek, one of the biggest synagogues in North America. Certainly at the time it was huge.
The Machers.
And you want to step away from his shadow and you go a different route, right? And you're saying that, why did you go a different route essentially? What was driving you?
It was my own project. I wasn't copying anybody except my cousin was doing the same thing. But
were you rebelling against your father?
I don't think so. I think I was carving out my own little place. He had his place. I wanted to get out of that shadow and not compete with him. I'm not going to be the best Torah reader in the world. Let me try something else and see if I can carve out my place. And I think that had a lot to do with it. And I liked it.
So we got the renowned cantor's son, goes in opposite direction, trying to carve out his own path in life. Correct so far?
Correct.
He's driven to be out of his father's shadow, spends about 40 years doing that, and doing it with certain successes in place. People recognize you're a talented musician. You've had some great gigs over the years.
Yes.
No, it's fair to say that.
I sat with Elton John in a Guelph University locker room jawing for an evening,
Yet you sit here today. Do you back to your father in some very powerful way? You've come full circle. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say because
and what's bringing you back full circle to your dad right at this moment?
Trying to get a nicer connection than we might have had. I don't want to paint it like it was, battling all the time. It wasn't like that. It just sort of slipped away into, not much of anything.
The relationship.
Yeah.
The relationship. So this production is essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, is your way to celebrate your dad and to reconnect with him.
Correct.
In perhaps the meaningful way that you might have wanted to when you were younger. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
We're going to pick up right there. We got to go to a commercial. We'll be right back. You're watching Canadian Jewish television.
You're watching JWeekly Canada. We'll be right back. Welcome back to JWeekly Canada. Here is Ieden.
I believe that the relationship between a father and son is one of the most complex, elaborately intricate relationships in all of the human condition. It's just so multi-layered. Would you agree?
Yes.
And I feel that there's this unresolved relationship, and I know it sounds like I'm doing therapy here. You're going to owe me $400 for this, by the way, but You feel like you're doing therapy here?
No, I'm happy about it because some of my therapists have fallen asleep while I was talking. At least you're not falling asleep.
But Allan, I feel like there's this heaviness of this unresolved relationship with your dad. I think that's fair to say, right?
Fair.
And now you're going back and you're reconnecting with your dad's identity as a teacher, a prominent teacher in Toronto. And you're doing this presentation, let's talk about it, this theatrical presentation called Searching for My Voice. And I think it's symbolic on so many levels because you're reconciling your relationship with your dad and you're also reconciling your own career in a sense, right? Your own chase for success, quote unquote success, but there really is no success as we know. So what you're really trying to do is to find your own heart on a deep level. Is that fair to say? Yeah. Tell the audience about this amazing presentation that's going to be touring right across Canada. It's called Searching for My Voice.
Well, it started out as after my father passed.
Yeah.
I did, for whatever people encouraged me to do a tribute CD, tribute something to him.
Yeah.
I came up with a CD.
Right.
So I found all his old tutorial tapes, everything he had recorded for his students.
Right.
And I put it all together, and there was one that he'd recorded a song for somebody who requested it. I put background vocals on my little Beach Boy thingy behind it, and people liked it. So I said, okay, maybe I should do more of that. So I did. I did a whole CD of that kind of thing, and I really oomphed it up and gave it everything I could do for background vocals and a hard rhythm track. Like I told you before, I called it Beach Boys and Queen Have a Bar Mitzvah. That was my version of it. And people liked it, and that was called Searching for My Voice because that's what I was doing. I wanted to, but the connection was it was all liturgy. It was all prayers I knew as a 5-year-old. Didn't change one note of the melody, but I arranged it in a different way. Put some solo-y type things, so there was a bit of addition to it. But and then I wound up doing another one, and he never heard a note of this because he was gone already.
Your dad never heard you kind of veering into more
No, he would have loved that
religious
stuff.
territory.
That's the irony.
Yeah.
There's the irony.
So what's it going to take to heal yourself?
I'm not sure. This is helping a bit because I'm remembering things I haven't thought about in decades.
But what needs to be healed? Do you ever think about that, though? What needs to be healed? You can be open with me.
Well, I'm not sure it's possible. I'm not sure because the participants are gone.
Okay, you might say it's impossible. Let's stretch for a minute. If they were here, what do you think needs to be done to heal yourself? And what are you trying to heal?
In terms of what needs to be healed, I'm not sure I can explain that, but how I'm trying to do it is what I'm doing.
Okay, but what hurts you? What is it that hurts you? Because when we need to heal something, we're healing a wound.
Being a disappointment, maybe.
To your dad?
Family, yeah.
Yeah. And you feel like a disappointment, which is such a universal theme, Allan. And we all want to make our parents proud, especially a son wants to make a father proud. So what you're experiencing is very universal. And now you are doing this show to make your father proud. Is that?
That's fair.
And do you believe that he's watching above?
I don't know if I believe that. I believe if he had access to this thing, I think that would.
You don't believe that in some strange way, in a way that we can't understand, that maybe he's watching above.
My line is I don't know. I can't say yes. I can't say no.
And if he is watching,
I think he'd like it.
If he is watching, what do you think he would say after he watches the very end of your presentation? He would come up to you and say, Allan,
good job.
Do you believe in God?
He pulled it right out of the hat. At this point in time, I'd have to say no.
You don't believe in God?
I have a quote in the show because I read it, and there was an author who said, I don't believe in God, but I miss him. And I think it's incredible, and that's in the show.
What does that mean to you?
To me, it means I wish there was, and I wish I could feel that good feeling when you know there's a super spirit out there sort of looking after you. Not looking after you, I don't know if we'll ever get that, but there's so much pain and so much suffering. I don't know. I think it helps when you have that faith to deal with that kind of pain and suffering. But given my personality, I just look at the pain and suffering and say, I don't understand. You know, I have a little tune a song, one of mine that's, why can't you bless every woman and man, you know.
Say it slowly, why can't you?
Why can't you bless every woman and man, not just, you know, some, and some don't get so blessed, and, you know.
Well, to that point, I think there's an interesting story that rabbis sometimes tell us, and the thing is that King Solomon says, do not lean onto your own understanding, right? Meaning that what we see in this world is so misleading because we're only seeing a very, very, very tiny portion of really what's out there, right? So what seems like injustice now, you're seeing it's like in a book, you're reading a chapter, right? It can be a pretty discouraging, disenchanting, disillusioning chapter, but it doesn't mean that's the entire book, right? So sometimes rabbis speak about that.
Yeah, so I feel it's a sort of a rationalizing thing because it could be the only chapter. Well, nobody knows. It's an I don't know line. Could be the only chapter. Maybe it's one little portion of more. We don't know. We don't know anything.
So you just said something interesting. So my question back to you would be, what would it take for you to feel antithetically to what you said, to feel that there is a God and that things are going to be okay? Like, what would it take for you to feel that kind of joy and peace?
More than I'm ever going to get.
Yeah. You know what I see in you? I see this amazingly sensitive guy who's often resisting his own sensitivity, his own vulnerability, because you're such a sensitive guy, and I feel, you know, my bracha for you, because I've only been sitting here and I just met you, but my bracha for you, Allan, not only that your presentation will be a phenomenal success, searching for my voice, but I hope for you that you can fully accept the greatness of who you are, which is your vulnerability, your sensitivity, and don't resist it, don't fight it. You don't have to, right? Because it does come from God. It does come from a higher place. And I often see you, you know, resisting that because you're a great neshama. You're a great neshama. You know, I'm honored to.
It's what I strive for, anyways.
You know, I'm honored to, you know, to have people like you in the studio here, and I hope that this presentation, I know it's going to entertain thousands across the country. Whatever I can do to help, I hope you will let me know. I also want you to let people know where it's going to be. I mean, to the best, it's a work in progress, but where is it going to be in the next few weeks?
In the next few weeks, well, next week at the new Leah Poslan's Theatre, which is in the rebuilt North Y at Shepherd and Bathurst.
And we encourage everybody to give their support to this amazingly authentic, organic story, the story of Allan Soberman and his career, his life, and his relationship with his dad, who is the inspiration behind all of the songs and the music in this production. It was such an honor to have you here today, and I wish you, if there's anything we can do to help, I hope you'll let us know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Success.
You're watching JWeekly Canada. We'll be right back. From Studio 18, here is Susan Minuk.
Hi, Lena. Thank you so much for coming to the studio today.
I'm glad to be here.
So, Lena, let's talk about the beginning. In I guess, 1939, Poland was being invaded by the Nazis, and your father left. He left the country.
Yes.
Let's talk about that in real time, what that was like for you.
Well, my father was a very
astute,
politically astute guy. He followed those things. And I'm told that they actually heard some bombs far away, and he didn't think twice. He said to my mother, Genya, Jenny is her name, pack up the kids, just take what you can put in your pocket, and we have to leave immediately, go to the train station. Well, he was right. Not everybody actually felt this way. Often the Jews in small villages like that felt that because of the pogroms that happened, They came and they went, and people just suffered with them. But this was different, and he knew there was something happening with the Nazis. So we escaped from our house, left the door. We didn't even lock the door, and went to the train station. It's not like Union Station here. It was just a very primitive platform, and a train would pull up. And we weren't alone. There were quite a number of people there with families, with children. And we boarded the train, and it was chaos. Everybody was very frightened and nervous. Everybody wanted to get onto the train. Children were crying. Anyhow, we did get on. And we didn't know where we were going, except that we knew we wanted to go east, further east, away from Germany and Poland.
Right.
And at one point, I became very ill with the German measles, which, as you know, is very
Fatal.
communicable disease, and there are lots
How
of.
old were you at this time? Do
I
you
was just
remember?
about a year, maybe,
Okay.
roughly a
A real
year.
little one,
Just
yes.
a little tiny thing. And I can't imagine my parents traveling with a small child like that. My brother was
Yeah.
3.
Okay.
And so everybody was panicking on the train, saying that if you don't get off, the next time the train slows down because it doesn't stop, we will throw your child out the window.
Okay.
And I believe that would have happened because they were hysterical, and they had reason to be. A lot of young people on the train. And yes, so that's what we did. We hopped off the train in the middle of nowhere. We weren't sure where we were. There was fields and forests, and we started to walk away from the train rails. And eventually, my father spotted something that looked like a structure at the horizon, a small one. And it was a very small, very poor farm, very primitive. But he knocked at the door. And the door opened up, and this lovely, I can't call her lovely, she was a woman with red hair pulled back into a bun, a very stout lady, and she had a cross on her chest. She was a Christian. And he told her, I have a sick child, and it's getting dark. Do you know is there anywhere we can stay just overnight so we can find something to do about this? She said, come into my house. Here's my house. She opened the door.
Beautiful soul.
Strangers, we were strangers. And the story goes that we ended up hiding there for the duration of the war, which was 4 years. 4 years in a small, tiny place, no water, no running water, no toilet.
It's unimaginable, but it's...
You know, but having said that, from my point of view, from a child's point of view,
Yes.
it was all I knew, and it was a beautiful thing. I was connected to the little sheep there. There were chickens there. They had a small orchard there. They were self-sustained food-wise as far as vegetables were concerned. And my father was fortunate enough, because he was a tailor. He got a job at a Russian factory,
Yes.
which produced Russian uniforms for their soldiers. Yeah. So it was a little far away, but he managed to get there with a horse and a buggy. I mean, they lived that way.
So is it fair to say that this Christian woman saved your life and your
Absolutely.
family's life?
Absolutely. And she didn't want us to leave. She loved us. She told us, to my parents, you're like my son and you're like my daughter. And of course, she was very kind with us. We called her Auntie Masha, Tante Masha. And it was sad when we left. We all cried.
I want to move on to when you came to Central Tech. Was that when you were still just 12 years old, but when did you recognize you had a gift and a talent for art?
Immigrant kids, when they came to Toronto, often were put into a technical school because of the language that they didn't know. You know, they could take some other courses, but it was a high school, but it also specialized in other trades, perhaps, if you want to call it that. Central Tech had an art department, one of the best in Canada at the time, and I think it still is, with incredible famous people who were artists and teachers. And I was put in there because my parents told whoever they were that our daughter is really drawing beautiful pictures. I don't know if I knew that or not, but I did.
Okay.
And so I entered that department. And it was a wonderful education for me.
We're going to just take a moment here, Lena, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
You're watching Canadian Jewish Television. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to JWeekly Canada.
Hi, Lena. We're back. So I want to talk about your art. So it's fair to say here that you specialize at Central Tech in art. You discovered that you had a gift?
I discovered that I really loved what I was doing.
Okay.
And began to paint on my own. I also got a job in that field, and I became the head of the color studio of CIL. So that was also an impetus for me to, wow, maybe I should really take this seriously. And over the years, my art has evolved naturally, and I think that happens to most artists, depending on how your life is going. When my children were small, I painted a little bit less, but when they were grown up and gone to school, I was able to experiment.
So your art has been shown all over the world.
It has. I
Exhibited.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's talk about your style of art. I mean, I guess before we talk about that, I want to get in that you have an exhibit, your solo exhibition that's coming up called Moonstruck.
Right.
Now, by the time the show airs, it would have already passed, but I want to talk about, you brought one of your paintings here. Let's talk about your work and I guess your style of work as well. Has it been consistent, or is it?
I think it's evolved a great deal, and I think as it should be, depending on where you are in life and what your experiences are. But there's certain basics that remain the same. The fact that I use a lot of good color, I like vibrant color, and also a lot of my subject matter comes from my heart and my mind, some of my memories. And this painting here is one of those. This is a painting from a child's remembrance of the little farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in Russia.
That we were just talking about.
That's right. And so I thought I would paint this. And it's a very personal painting. I haven't shown it to anybody. It's something that I wanted
I'm honored.
to.
Thank you for bringing it here.
And it's in my house. I don't think I'll ever show it anywhere, but I could.
Well, it's really lovely chatting with you and seeing you again, Lena.
Thank
and if the viewers want to see your work, perhaps purchase your work, where would they find it?
Well, it's being shown at the Women's Association of Art of Canada, and it's at Prince Arthur, just north of Bloor Street. They can look it up.
Do you have a website where you?
I have a website, but it hasn't got that in it yet. It's under construction, and I have some cards I can give you. They can call me.
Okay.
Or look it up, I suppose.
Well,
Yes,
your story is fascinating. I love how it's symbolic with your painting, and you're sharing it because it's so important to share the stories and just to reconnect again, and that your painting still, it really warms my heart. You have a gift and you're sharing it with the world. It's beautiful.
I feel privileged. I do.
You're watching Canadian Jewish Television. My name is Susan Minuk. We'll be right back.
You've been watching JWeekly Canada. See you next week.